in this lesson, we'll take a look at how we can adjust our color textures. So after we've painted our textures, we may want to actually adjust some different aspects of those textures. So we may want to come in, for instance, on the base color and make some adjustments. Well, we can come into our paint tools, and there are actually some adjustment brushes that we can utilize. You'll see some of these are familiar if you've used tools like Photoshop. We can blur our texture. We can also dodge and burn the texture, so we can darken areas or lighten areas. And these work the same way. We can use stamps with these. We can affect the midtones, highlights, or shadows. And so you're probably familiar with that. And so we can come in and lighten up certain areas on our texture. Okay, so this is all brush based, and we can come in with burn and darken up different areas if we want to. Okay, we can also change the contrast or saturation, so we can use the sponge, and we can come in here and change our saturation. So you can see it's set to 1 right now. A positive amount will decrease the saturation, and then if we go ahead and take that negatively, we can increase the saturation. So you can see we're getting a little bit more saturation in there in the color. All right, we can also change the hue. Okay, so we've got a red selected. We can change the hue like that, or we can use hue shift and change it based on the color wheel. And so using this value here in degrees, we can kind of shift around the color wheel and modify that color. So looking at our color wheel, you can kind of see where this color is. So if we're kind of right in here, so let's say it's kind of right over here. So 180 degrees would be sort of red on that color wheel. So if we were to go into hue shift and set that hue shift there, you can see it turns it red. And so it's based on kind of rotating around that color wheel. All right, so we can use these adjustment brushes. We can also invert the paint if we want to affect specific areas of our mesh using stamps or stencils or any of the other methods that we can use to paint here in Mudbox. But we can also affect the paint layer overall and adjust it as a whole rather than trying to paint and match things up across the whole surface. So to do that, we'll just select the individual paint layer, and I'll just right click on this, and we'll go all the way to the bottom and choose this adjust color. All right, we can now choose a preset. So there, we can make it inverse, we can make it black and white, more or less contrast, make it warmer or cooler. So there's a number of different presets that we can use, or we can just come in here and adjust the hue, saturation, and value. So we could adjust this hue if we don't like his color. We could saturate it a little bit more, okay, or desaturate it, as the case may be. We can make it darker or lighter. Okay, we can also adjust curves, so you can adjust the RGB or just adjust the red, green, blue, or the value and saturation and use a curve-based method for that. And so I can make adjustments here as we deal with this as a whole. So maybe we want a little bit more green in there. And we can adjust it that way. And once we're done, we just hit OK. And now those adjustments are all baked into that paint layer. And you can do this with any of these layers. And even layers that are associated with different channels, you can adjust those as well. So in addition to adjusting the paint as a whole using this adjust color, we can also adjust specific areas. If we want just certain areas to be a little bit more saturated, we can use the sponge and just focus that on specific areas. If, for instance, we want to have kind of this red in here, or this part up here, we can jump into different layers and start to make adjustments to those layers using our adjustment brushes and also the adjust color here. All right. Now at some point you may want to start to merge some of these layers together. Okay, once you've got them sort of worked out as far as the visibility, you can see we've got 67% strength, 73% strength. You can come in here and let's say turn off the visibility of the base, and then we can right click and we could go ahead and merge visible. That'll take that detail, merge it onto one layer here, and then we can adjust that particular layer. If you want to do that, kind of Save a little bit of memory dealing with these, because remember, each layer actually consists of 3 texture maps that Mudbox is keeping track of. All right, so that's how we can real quickly adjust color using the adjustment brushes. You can come in here and adjust them, or you can adjust the entire paint layer itself. So in the next lesson, let's take a look at how we can apply these methods of painting to different channels. So up to this point, we've just been painting in the diffuse, but what happens if we start to paint in the specular or in the incandescence or bump? So we'll take a look at that in the next lesson.